The streams that we are dealing with is in terms of number of PROs and streams managed is by number of streams and PROs is first so electronic waste for electrical and electronic appliances, waste batteries, and also waste packaging. In addition to this PRO activity, we also provide individual services to companies who need locally, regionally, or globally to manage their own take-back waste for the same product categories, but also other types of product, like, for instance, coffee capsules, or chemicals, or textile. And we also deliver advisory services both to producers who need to find solutions for their own regulatory obligations across the globe, or for producers who need to implement operational solutions, whether they are on a collective level or on an individual level. Next slide, please. So due to our history in the field of extended producer responsibility, we have actually collected quite a lot of waste. And if you see that we are now close to have collected 8 million tons of packaging waste since we started operations, over 4 million tons of electronic waste, and over 110,000 tons of battery waste. Landbell has close now to 500 employees, and we have a very diverse and global company when it comes to staff, because we have well over 30 different nationalities within our team. Next, please. So when it comes to our credential in extended producer responsibility, this is what we do. This is what we know how to do. First of all, it's everything that revolves around EPR system design. And we know all of this because we've been through it a number of times. Being at the command of 40 different PRO took us through the process over 40 different times, actually, because we are doing it for ourselves. We are also doing it for third parties. So we have become familiar with shaping and adapting regulatory framework, institutional framework, analyzing the value chain in any new market where EPR is contemplating, engaging stakeholders, developing capacity, and working on data creation and data management. Similarly, of course, the framework is nothing without implementation and enforcement. So we have designed and built a large number of producer responsibility organizations. To this day, we are running 40 of our own, but we have also built extended producer responsibility systems for others who are running them. And we brought the expertise, we brought the engineering, the design skill in order to help them take their own system off the ground. So that involves developing the necessary operational models and processes, the financials of the scheme, the planning, budgeting, and business plan making, and everything that revolves to continuous improvements through monitoring, reporting, and adjusting. And of course, working with the supply chain on technical guidance, on technical standards, on quality standard, in order to drive the EPR value chain up. And beside those collective solutions, we will run individual solutions for those companies who have specific needs for their own products. Next, please. So this is where, when it comes to advisory, we have delivered our expertise last year. Only, as you see, quite a number of those missions have taken place in Africa. We delivered services in North Africa, in Tunisia, Algeria, on Egypt, but also in sub-Saharan Africa, in Ghana, Nigeria, and Tanzania. Thank you very much. So I will hand over now that I have presented Landbell, to Sebastian Frisch, who will give a short introduction on green forest solutions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christoph. As mentioned, our company name is Green Forest Solutions. We are the joint venture partner of Landbell. To the next slide, please. There you see that we are part of a holding. Actually, there's also our sister company, Black Forest Solutions, with also then sub companies where we, for example, organize reverse logistic schemes and already are active with some other PROs together with Landbell. You see on the next slide our scope of services, which I believe is complementary to what Landbell is doing. You see here, for example, we have expertise in the transfrontier shipment and operations when it comes to hazardous waste and e-waste. We are providing quite a range of services for hazardous waste and e-waste generators worldwide, using the Basel Convention that is also ratified by Kenya as the global legal framework to do transboundary shipment of hazardous waste in the case that there's no appropriate treatment option inside the country. Then we are also into technical consultancy, what Christoph just explained in one slide. We are also partnering in some of the consultancy projects, but we also go beyond EPR in this consultancy project. We are offering the whole range of solutions for all types of waste. This can be municipal solid waste, even organic waste, food waste. This is all covered by our consultancy arm. Then we are into what we call TPA, that's technology, performance and advisory. This is to improve the operations of treatment facilities. Yeah, so when a sorting or recycling facility has challenges to improve either technically or also from a profit perspective, then we are supporting and advising here to improve the performance of this recycling and treatment facilities. And we are also into project development, entering new markets and supporting clients there. In the next slide, you see actually our outreach. And I think that's a bit unique also for us that we are really globally spread from Mexico to Indonesia. We have worked in more than 60 countries already. So this is a network that any client customer in Kenya would also have access to. Yeah? So if there is need, for example, for solutions outside, then there's a high probability that we can provide these solutions. We have conducted more than 200 projects in the last 8 years. And you see on the next slide, yes, thanks, Naren, our different clients in the consultancy field. Here's just an extract. We work for the World Bank, European Union, UN, and the German GIZ, and have also further partners, mainly from Germany. We are also a German company like Landbell, but we know how to adapt to the local conditions of the different market. I think that's it from my side. I think I can hand over to Sarah, right? Or to Christoph.
Yes, so I will take over from here. So next slide, please, Naren. So the idea of the next few minutes is just to give you an outlook of what is extended responsibility, to align all the participants should you have any limited knowledge in that area. So, and then after that, Sarah will move on specifically to detail what it means when it comes to Kenya. So, extended producer responsibility is an environmental policy. And it is based on a very simple principle. I mean, it's simple to state, maybe less simple to implement, but essentially it's making a producer, and I will come back to what a producer is, the producer of a good responsible for a product during its entire life cycle, and not solely during, let's say, the pre-waste phase of the product. And this is done to see and to look for special merit. But if you look at traditionally, a producer was responsible for designing the product, manufacturing the product, distributing the product, providing some after sales on the product, arguably, and that was it. So with extended producer responsibility, the post-consumer phase of the product is also the responsibility of the producers, which in practice means there is a financial, a shift of the financial burden from society, from the consumer, or municipalities to the producers when it comes to the end-of-life management. And the idea behind that, the idea is that in order to reduce that cost, producers who are usually for-profit companies, and of course they need to protect their profit margin, will therefore be incentivized to design products which have a less negative footprint on the environment. So by designing more sustainable product, then the cost of end of life, the cost of disposal will be reduced, and therefore the producers will see a financial benefit. They will protect their profitability, and there will also be, of course, benefits for everyone. Next, please. So if we look at who is involved into an EPR system, so of course at the center of it, the producers. But what is a producer? A producer is not necessarily the manufacturer of the product, because on many markets, the product comes from outside the market itself. They are being imported, for instance, or they are being sold remotely by means of distant sales. And so typically a producer is the entity or the persons, could be a natural person, could be a legal person, who first places on the market, who first introduces on the market a product. Very schematically, and depending on the jurisdictions, the definition will vary. But that's pretty much core and center of what a producer is. Whoever introduces first a product on the market. Then, of course, in an EPR system, and assuming you are dealing like we're going to deal in Kenya with a mandatory framework, of course, government authorities play a key role, and typically Ministry of Environment, Environment Management Agency, Waste Authority, these types of entity who, of course, are the main responsible when it comes to environmental matters, but also a vast array of other public stakeholders, which can encompass Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Local Authorities, Ministry of Industries, tax authority, national standard authorities, etc. All of these contribute to shaping the EPR systems and to its governance. Obviously, the consumers have also a pivotal role to play, because if the consumer does not dispose of the waste in the recommended manner, then there is very little that can be done effectively. So on implementing an EPR system is very much about, among other things, raising awareness of the consumer with a view to make him understand what is at stake, and with a view to affect the consumer behavior, for instance, in favor of proper waste separation at the time of disposal, and maybe more careful consumer choices at the time of purchase. Waste operators are, the arms and the legs of the EPR systems, and we see very often a mix of formal companies and informal companies who are doing the job, starting from collecting, sorting, aggregating, dismantling, recycling, recovering of the waste at various stages. Fully functioning EPR systems are able over time to develop the infrastructure that is necessary to do the work and to streamline it in order to be able to access the waste as early and as uncontaminated as possible in order to facilitate the recycling, of recovery, and possibly reuse of such waste. And one way to coordinate all those efforts among the overall waste reverse chain is the producer responsibility organization, aka the PRO. And those are the main stakeholders, but of course, around those core stakeholders, you see a number of other stakeholders who also have a say, typically NGOs representing civil society, dealing with environmental protection, social welfare, etc. All trade associations representing various interest groups, and obviously local communities representative. Next, please. So I would like to spend a minute on these slides, because this is what 20 years of doing EPR for various streams and in various countries have actually taught us. We see that EPR is a very effective tool. It is not a silver bullet. It is not perfect. And of course, there are goods and, let's say, improvable EPR implementation. And there are a number of mistakes that can be made along the way. What I would say is that compared with other ways of financing waste management, and especially waste management with recycling and recovery in mind, EPR, to my knowledge, has proven to be the most effective tools. But in order to be effective, a number of requirements are out there, and those that you see here as the one that I see as being really critical. First of all, the targets is a key matter. We need targets, and without targets, it's very difficult to have a working and essentially progressing EPR systems. But it's not sufficient to have targets, and targets must be smart. They must be certainly ambitious, but they must be realistic. They must be achievable. They must be measurable, and they must be spread over time, so that work toward planning, toward building the necessary operational framework to achieve this target can be realistically achieved. There should be clear roles and responsibilities, and as you've seen in the stakeholder slide before, it's not only about the producers, and it's certainly not only about the recyclers. Everybody has a role to play on the fully functioning EPR systems, and that is certainly something to keep our attention on, is where everybody knows exactly what they have to do. And if somebody has to do nothing, should also be aware of that. So the producers have a specific role to play. The retailers in most EPR systems have also a clear role to play, as well as municipalities, consumers, waste pickers, waste management companies, etc. And if roles are not clearly assigned, then it can lead to misunderstanding. There should also be a level playing field. And when I say that, it means that the opportunities should be the same for the waste operators, for instance. They should be in a position to develop their business opportunity in a way that is unhindered within set guidelines, set framework, on clear technical requirement framework, for instance. But mostly it is about having a level playing field for the producers, because producers needs to be equitably competing. Producers usually are evolving in a competitive market, and EPR could create a distortion if, for instance, some producers will be led to contribute more than proportionately to their market share to the funding of the system. And of course, all of this, when it comes to apportioning the obligation, allocating the cost of operating EPR, must be made into a transparent and equitable manner, so that everybody contributes in proportion of their actual obligation. That being said, there could be decisive choice made when it comes to incentivizing the use of certain material versus other materials, for instance. This is a so-called modulation of the EPR fees in order to gradually reduce the usage of the most concerning substances in product, for instance. But within same set of requirement, there should be equity between participants. There is also the need, of course, to educate the consumer. I have an idea for you. There is also the need to educate consumers because, again, they are at the beginning of the return chain, and if they don't behave as expected, the system will have a hard time taking off the ground. We need simple and equitable rules. Hopefully, this is what we are going to get in Kenya, where it's pretty clear what everybody has to do. And it's no-nonsense rules that can be worked with in the local context and in the local timeline. And that being said, rules need to be enforced, and that would be the role, of course, of the authorities to ensure this level playing field, and that would be sufficient controls to make sure that there is no free rider affecting the financing of the systems, for instance, on the equity between participants. And finally, because EPR is only 30-year-old, which is in the scale of things, is not very old, and because recycling technologies keep evolving and changing, there is certainly a need on any market to consider research and development activities so that to adjust and improve year on year the capacity, the performance of the system, and certainly it's not like there is a catalog of solutions that are frozen and that will remain available and optimal forever. No, it is an ever-changing world of technology, and therefore research and development is needed. So I will stop here, and I will now hand it over to Sarah. And Sarah will go from this rather general presentation on EPR to the very specific requirement in Kenya on how it affects you as company in your respective role. Thank you, Sarah, up to you.
Thank you, Christophe. I don't think after that presentation I should speak. We should just end that meeting right there and we start discussing other nitty-gritties. However, I'll just go through very quick about the draft EPR regulations in Kenya and where they have, and the journey and what is meant for you as the producers to your obligations. Section 13 of the Sustainable Waste Management Act of 2022 introduces the polluter's pay principle. And as it states on the slides, we have three, it's section 13.1, section 13.2, and section 13.3. Section 13.1 and 2, those have already been fulfilled. And as I'll show in one of the other slides, is that actually even NEMA has started enforcing section 1 and section 2. Currently, section 3, section 13.3 is currently underway, and I know the draft regulations are in between the AG's office and the Ministry of Environment. Next slide. So what does it specifically say? So it gives the mandate to the producer to take care of their products when they come to end of life. And how can you do that? One is by establishing take-back schemes, which may include deposit refund when appropriate, or either set up or join an individual or a collective EPR scheme. I would like to applaud the works of Samsung. I know they've had a collection take-back system with one of their dealers, that is the Housewives Paradise, where they were calling people to take back their old end-of-life Samsung products. Then one of the other one is you are required as a producer to register with NEMA and regularly report on the status of your obligations. And this is dependent on how much you introduce into the country. The other one is to the importance of designing environment-friendly products and packaging and minimizing waste, minimizing the waste and facilitating reuse, repurposing, then recycling. It's good to see one of the people I work with when it comes to the repurposing of electronic items based in Ngara. Wilson, thank you so much for joining this meeting. Then producers should take financial, organization, and physical responsibility for managing, treating, and disposing their post-consumer products. And this is the reason why we are here, to discuss on how a collective scheme will help you to be able to meet all these obligations. You need to meet your other KPIs of making profits and making sure that you meet your sustainable goals, ESGs, whereas someone else takes care of this burden. Next slide. The regulations also instruct that consumers will be updated with information regarding the quantities of products that you as a producer introduced into the national market, their recyclability, reusability, and actually even on the labels are how to interpret whether this is recyclable, where can I take it, and also market traceability mechanisms. The other one is to educate consumers about their roles in the 4 Rs. There are 6 now, depending on how you interpret it, and also the role of take-back system. Sorry, Nyawera, I'll use you a lot today. So when I first knew that Samsung was doing take-back system, I can define that as a take-back system. It was blasted on my email because I receive regular updates on our Samsung products. So that is consumer awareness. But now that should not be your problem. It should be the PRO's problem as when you give us that mandate to do so. Producers are expected to promote awareness about managing post-consumer products they introduce into the market and carry out product life cycle assessment to enhance environment sustainability. I know Vivo Energy is currently planning to do and is actually doing a lot of solar panels onto their Shell petrol stations. Life cycle assessment, as Christoph, for solar panels is one place which is a bit debatable. So it tends to take a lot of research into it, and that's where PROs come in to aid you to you're able to report on that as well. Producers may execute all part of their EPR obligation through membership agreement to a collective scheme managed by a PRO. And this is what Landbell Green Forest Solution is pitching to you. Basically, this is a pitch session as well as an awareness creation session. The lack of an established compliance scheme does not exempt producers from their legal their obligation. Individual compliance schemes apply when. So basically, you can decide not to be part of a PRO and go it by yourself. But the rigorous of all the documentation that you're supposed to do, you would rather have someone else who understands what all this is all about to do it for you. Next slide. So what are the benefits to NEMA and the counties? I had invited county government officials, but I think they're busy with the Air Africa Climate Summit. But this is what is benefiting to them. In Kenya, waste management is a devolved function. And this squarely falls into what NEMA counties are supposed to be doing to make sure that they take care of your end-of-life electrical equipment and as well as textile, because that's what we are proposing to have. Currently, our dam sites, anyone who has been to Dandora will see, it's choking with end-of-life electric equipment and textile, and which is not a pretty site to have. The benefit one is to clear controllable framework for transferring responsibility to designated stakeholders. One key thing, and this is why the Retailers Association is here, is Kenya does not have the original equipment manufacturers themselves fitting into the country. Very few are actually here. So they have official distributors who are retailers and they're members of that association. So that will be able to give counties and NEMA the traceability bit of it and to control. Most effort is outsourced to the private sector while the regulator focuses on the supervisions, incentives, and sanctions. It's a win-win situation. NEMA wins, county wins, and you win, and the environment wins. And I win as also as a consumer. All waste fractions can be covered regardless of their market value. So here when we get more into this, you'll hear addition of highly addition of fractions, problematic fractions. Those are the printers, for instance. Most repairers and recyclers will tell you printers are such a problematic function, especially when it comes to toners. I'm sorry if there's anyone here from that from a distributor of toners. Job creation opportunities. The job creation is immense. Green jobs are extremely of high value. I see Africa Collect Textile. They've created green jobs when it comes to textile recycling. They make amazing carpets and table liners from waste clothes. That is your jeans and your anything else that you had been able to safely and ethically dispose of it. Infrastructure development opportunities are in here. Currently in the country, we lack enough resources to do we don't have the volumes, for instance, to set up a proper urban mining facility for e-waste. So we need to have something that, because of volumes, because collection is not very high, and also the technology itself is very expensive. But when producers come together and we are able to fundraise together, resource mobilization is one key component of a PRO, then we'll be able to see to what extent where are we going. Yesterday, I was in a meeting and James Mwangi, the group CEO of Equity Bank, said, it's not about climate financing only, but also social impact financing. And here I'll rephrase that. It's not about meeting your EPR obligations. It's also about social impacting through infrastructure development will create jobs which will help you meet your ESG goals as you report on your sustainability reports and meet your sustainable development goals. One key thing, positive signal population. This is not an additional tax to your to whatever you introduce to the country. It's for the good of the country. Next. Benefits for waste operators and recyclers. Market size tends to grow with EPR development. That is a shock as well. No, I know everyone is like, no, I didn't think that can happen. Non-variable fractions are financed by the system for collection and treatment. As I've mentioned, bulbs, cartilage from toners, those are problematic fractions. They actually don't move. You find them just sitting somewhere. Capacity investment opportunities, return on investment is easier with enforced regulations and targets. Next. So what are the benefits to you as the producer? The rest was to the operators who will be able to make to earn more. I forgot to say that now they'll be able to see the value of the last mile person is able to actually be recognized and benefit from their work. As Christoph said, one of the key things of benefit to the producers, importers, and brand owners is that you have a level playing field for all the producers through a good EPR design and enforcement. The other one is ability to reap rewards from your own product design efforts. One of the key things of a PRO mandate is to ensure that we have circular designed products. So if the recyclers come and tell you that your washing machine, when it comes in for repair, I cannot be able to remove the opening thing there. For instance, if it's a top loader or the other one here at the center, if they tell you the top loader is easy to repair, we need all to go to the top loaders so that we encourage repairability. The other one is more control over the design operation within the PRO. Then under EPR, fees paid by the producers are generally secured for that purpose. So whatever Vivo will pay, whatever Samsung will pay, whatever Liquid will pay is specifically going to go to that. As one of the things I'll go back to the circular designs is I have always wondered why every other ISP has a different system has a different design of a router. We need to have one. Currently, I'm guilty of having 2 routers that I'm not using in the house, but I don't know where to take them. Because when I changed an internet service provider, they all give me a different router. So that is one area that we'll need to rethink about. Next. So the EPR impacts they can go through all. This is the STEM, I think, pastel. So we picked just a few. One is economic, the financial resources of EPR schemes that were previously non-existent can be used to finance sustainable waste management. Through the EPR fees that you pay, we'll be able to collect more solar panels. We'll be able to collect more bulbs, more fridges, CFC fridges, which were banned a few years ago, but you still find them in our markets in somewhere. Be able to collect more dead laptops where we stop depositing them with your repairer, your old TV. The other one is environment. It's safe for the environment. So instead of you just adding your bulb to your waste bin, then you say the garbage collector is going to take care of it. So that is able to do that because the chemicals that make our EEE products and also the textile tend to choke the environment in different ways. Socially, there's something nice to say. You can see how proud I am about Samsung being able to collect their old phones and old TVs. You see how proud I am talking about ACT being able to pick my jeans and giving me a bag and giving me a carpet. It gives you some bragging rights. And also the generation after the millennials are getting more and more consumer aware. They want to consume a product. They know the traceability of it. They're more environment conscious than we are. Those, I think, are Gen Zs and alphas and the generation alpha. Then we have the technology bit of it. Recycling technology is very expensive. And it's only through us coming together as producers would be able to invest in that and make sure that this kind of, we offset some of this investment, we offset the expense of investment through coming together. Facilities will get top-notch technology. As you can see here, Black Forests I've known Black Forest because they move hazardous waste. The batteries, waste batteries, we don't need to, but one key thing Sebastian always tells me, he's not happy whenever he has to move batteries from Africa and take them to Europe for recycling. Yet we actually are the source of the main mineral that manufactures batteries. So that kind of resource needs to come and stay in the country. And that's where EPR comes in. Next. So my official pitch, that was awareness creation. Landbell Green Forest Solutions is a joint venture for Landbell and Danberg Group and Green Forest Solutions. So in short, this is a trust baby. She comes very well fed with knowledge on how to do a few things. What is our main goal is to envision a sustainable circular future for Kenya's waste management landscape. The other one is to collaborate with producers, importers, and brand owners to fulfill their APR obligations efficiently, effectively, and sustainably. And we are planning to focus mainly on EEE and textile waste. The other one is to offer a comprehensive range of advisory services. As Landbell introduced themselves, you can see they said they offer a range of services that through advisory encourage more customized take-back system and strategies. Next. Key focus areas is client-centric. We want to understand your business and we offer a client-centric solution. Public awareness, this we are going to do together. The other one is to build local capacity building. And this will involve training programs for the local recyclers, entrepreneurs, and I can equally say here that we are currently in conversation with Andy, that is the Aspen network of development entrepreneurs, to see on how we'll be able to collaborate, as they have a key mandate in implementing waste management policies in the countries that they operate. The other one is software solutions for environment compliance. Landbell comes in fully loaded with our compliance scheme system that will help us be able, and we'll actually customize it for how it fits into the Kenyan market. The other one is the recycling infrastructure. As discussed earlier, we'll need a lot of investment that come in, and we can only come together. The system of Harambee, and this is just Harambee for our environment from every of producers. Next. The role of EPR, this was mentioned earlier by Christoph, but it's from the producers. So that basically shows that we'll give, so Landbell is here at the center, Landbell Green Forest is at the center. We communicate with the producers, we'll communicate with the authorities, we communicate with the consumers, we communicate even with the collectors and the recyclers. So it's a vicious cycle, it's a circular cycle that keeps on moving, it's a wheel. The other one is to organize compliance with EPR for your EPR obligation. It's a platform for linking the private and the public stakeholders, and this will be a transparent vehicle guaranteeing accountability. And I see our the legal firm that we are currently working with to make sure that we're able to have this registered as quick as possible is in this meeting. Thank you, Duncan, for joining. And then funded and led by you. I've had separate conversations with Mercy from Liquid, Moses Ndiritu of Basigo, who could not be able to join because of personal reasons, and also Wilson and Wamboi Mbarire. We've had those conversations because you provide, you represent a very key market for us that will need to include it. Next. So NEMA recently issued this directive. I think everyone has seen it, and that's why I've explained everything through it. However, don't be alarmed. When we walk this journey together, this should not be a threat to you. So if you are a member, so you just give us the list of products introduced to the Kenyan market, then give evidence of membership, we'll have an MOU understanding with everyone else here who would want to walk the journey with us. Then estimate your annual volumes of Kenyan products introduced to the market. We are currently having, by end of this month, we'll be ready with our baseline survey for EEE and HSE codes for trading. Then finally, it's a mechanism for identification and tracking products. Next. These are timelines. I'll just leave them there for you to absorb. So the regulatory framework assessment that is done, immediately after this meeting, we'll share with you a summary of the Sustainable Waste Management Act, not the 30 pages, it's only 3 pages. This one is a quick read. You'll read when you're still in traffic, waiting for the policeman to let you go. And also the act, the regulation. Then open for members. This is the discussion of our first member stakeholders meeting. And later on, through your commitment, we'll go on to the admission of members. Infrastructure, this will lead to the assessment of the collection system, the recycling system that we have in corporation, and then the official launch will be done in 2024. Next. This is our success story. In Kenya, we have a saying, if you can drive in Nairobi, you can drive anywhere in the world. In the environment world, we say, if you can hack Indian market, you can hack anywhere else. Landbell Green Forest Solution has been able to hack the Indian market, been able to offload free riders, and this what it caters for: EPR for e-waste, EPR for plastic, advisory for waste management, and then customs sustainability progress. Next. Oh, I'm done. Then the next steps is we'll do the next steps after we listen to the questions. We take in the questions and answers. Thank you so much. Christoph, you can take over this session.
Yes, so hello again, everyone. Should you have any question, please simply unmute your mic and ask for it, or if you prefer, you can type it in the chat.
Hello, can I just throw a question, perhaps?
Absolutely.
My name is Elmar Stromer. I'm one of the founders of ACT, Africa Collect Textiles. Thank you for the presentation. It's a very good developments. I was wondering something. We always have a very much difficulty sort of like pinpointing who the actual producer still is. Because one of the biggest problems we face in Kenya is the waste that is coming with mitumba, the second-hand clothing. 40%, 50% of what is shipped in is waste. For example, I meet sometimes people from Tommy Hilfiger or PVH or even Patagonia, and I say, a lot of your clothing is actually now drowning in the Nairobi River. Would you not like to do something about that? And then I always get sort of like this response, we don't bring it to Africa. So we are technically not a producer anymore. We want our clothes to stay in Europe or in the US. And in a way, they are right. Once it is donated in the city of Amsterdam, for example, it belongs to the city council. And then it is sold to a collector, and then it is sold to a sorter, and then it is sold to an Kenyan importer, and then it is sold to resellers, and then to people. So everybody's just pointing to someone else, basically, to be the aggressor, the fashion aggressor. I was wondering, like how you would go about such a situation whereby the producer status is technically passed on several times.
Well, I mean, this is a situation that we can observe across any type of product. And however disappointing for you it can be, the answer that they give you is legally correct. That is, if you take any state, any jurisdiction, they have the power to regulate what is entering their market, but it's difficult to conduct any enforcement or to mandate anybody established somewhere else and doing business somewhere else to comply with regulation in your country. Maybe some countries are able to impose such things, but I'd say behind the US, I would see probably very few. So legally, the producers is whoever is entering the product on the local market, and meaning that it would be the importer. Now, of course, I really sympathize with your stance, because you could say, yes, but those companies who are placing product on the market in Europe or elsewhere, ultimately, I mean, they know what is happening, and they would have maybe some kind of moral obligation to those products. From a legal point of view, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I mean, the fact is that unless they would make sales direct from abroad into Kenya, where possibly you could say, sorry, you're a distant seller, and therefore you are obligated, then there is no immediate answer. I think that from a point of view of enforcement, there is a need to engage the local importers and to check what is penetrating the borders of the country, maybe with the support of the customs authority. And when to come to the big brands, I think it's a longer game. It's about anyway making them aware of their global responsibility, which fortunately, as you know, in Europe, a textile, let's say, I dare not say EPR right away, even though, yes, I mean, textile EPR is coming up. A number of countries are gearing up to make what has been maybe so far a voluntary endeavor, something of a more regulatory nature. And therefore, it will be beneficial, I think, for large brands to have a global understanding of their footprint. And with that, possibly, but I mean, again, difficult to be 100% positive about it. They should look at the footprint of their own product, not only when they are first placed on the market, but also beyond. There has been discussions on in some other countries where we worked, where some let's say stakeholders said, look, when the product is placed on the market first in Europe, it's facing an EPR contribution. And therefore, why doesn't this EPR contribution travel with the product after it's leaving the market? And I think it's intellectually, it works. In practice, this is not how EPR fees are made. And an EPR fee is made for a given return rate in the country where a PRO will operate. And therefore, whatever is the fee in the Netherlands is for what is going to be collected in the Netherlands. So occasionally, there can be reserve built up, but the mechanism don't follow the product during its second or its third life. This is not how it works. And we have to see maybe if discussion in relation to the plastic treaty, for instance, could lead to other type of models. So I think that maybe to cut it short, because it's a pretty long answer, and I feel like I'm repeating myself. I think what you're doing is the right thing, is to keep talking to the brand and see if effectively some support could be eventually delivered. I know that on the packaging front, some packaging manufacturer takes an interest in seeing how in practice on various markets EPR can take place. I'm not talking about the food and beverage brand here. I'm more talking about the packaging manufacturer themselves, and maybe some similar approach could also be considered. I see that somebody raised his hand also. Or...
Yes, Christoph and or Jürgen Fuchs. I'm from the global sales team from Landbell here in Mainz. And I'm just looking into the legislation textile in Netherlands. And I think one key point, what you also mentioned, is that some requests of the legal conditions are that textile products have to be recycled in the Netherlands in the future. So that means that will become an obligation, because you were stating that a lot of textile products which are not good for use might be shipped overseas or wherever they are sent. Yeah. So, and I think the Netherlands government is catching up on this. I'm not that far that I'm an expert on textiles for Netherlands, but I have taken a brief look into the legal requirements. And therefore, I needed to do this because we are also setting up a collection scheme in the Netherlands.
Right.
Thank you, Jürgen.
Thank you.
Again, if you have any questions or points you want to make, please just unmute and intervene.
Was the presentation so good that everyone understood? Oh, Wamboy has a question. Wamboy, go ahead.
There are two people, but I can't hear the question from Wamboy. He's on mute, or she's on mute, but
All right. I think if Wambo is on mute, let me go ahead.
okay.
My name is Georg Flom, working for the Delegation of German Industry and Commerce for Eastern Africa. My question is whether you would be planning to have one PRO for both textile and or would you set up two separate PROs? And secondly, have you already identified particular recyclers in the Kenyan market with whom you are planning to work together? Thank you.
Sarah, I can answer the first one and you pick up the second one if you want. So we see that it is possible to create a single entity to host the management of various streams. And I think that this will bring a simple benefit to the producers in so that they will basically share the administrative costs, having the multiple streams and producers into a single legal entity.
On the second question for recyclers, as you can see, for instance, for the clothing textiles, we already have ACT here, who are majorly, in my opinion, they do the bigger chunk of the work. For electric, we already have the last mile, for instance, the last mile recyclers are people who handle e-waste. One of them is represented here, is Wilson. So we'll have a separate conversation with the recyclers first towards the end, but there are not many, and I already know them. I've worked in one of the e-waste recycling facility in Kenya, so we already have who to target to. But the focus foremost now is to work with the last mile person as we go up. Wambui, you can speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Now, yes.
Okay, so it must be my Bluetooth that has a problem. So thank you very much for an awesome presentation. I was just saying, I know Sarah knows I say this everywhere, that the success of EPR will have a very significant role, will require a very significant role for the consumers. So I would want to know best practices elsewhere and how the consumer's been engaged so that we can do likewise, because I think one of the presenters did say something about to be able to scale, you need commitment and you need volumes for it to be sustainable. And the only way to acquire that volume is if the consumers are highly engaged, highly aware. So just a question in regard to how can we better start engaging consumers, maybe similar to what I think Nyawera Samsung was mentioned to be doing, constant blasts to subscribers to their products. How do we bring in people such as Liquid to also start doing consumer engagement programs through internet or any other form? So once you hit the ground, there is significant volumes that allow you to be sustainable. So my question is, how do we engage the consumer better and more effectively?
Yes, thank you for this question, Wambui. There are a number of activities that can be considered, that have been considered, before I describe some of them, I would say one thing is that you are absolutely correct that education, communication to the consumer is a key element of the success of EPR, and it is something that never stops. Is that you can't say, okay, I communicate in the beginning and that after the system runs. Maybe for a while it will, but the reality is you need to continuously remind, educate, and because you have new generations and you have new priorities arising time over time, and therefore education and awareness, outreach programs are something which is in an EPR system of a business as usual nature. The PRO plays a key role, of course, in creating a consistent and homogeneous message. What we want to avoid is that there would be various and sometimes contradicting or blurry injunctions. So I think that the message must be clear and revolves around two key topics. Is why we want you to do something and what we expect you to do. I think the why is important, is that the consumer should understand what's the rationale, what's the root cause of this behavioral change that we expect from him. And of course, after that, there is a need for clear guidelines. Say, what do I do in practice with my product? My product is used, but still working. Maybe I can give it, maybe I can sell it secondhand. It's not working anymore. Maybe I can dispose of it. How can I best dispose of it? What are the outlets? And if we look all of that, of course, and coming back to the list of stakeholders, different stakeholders may have a different role to play when it's come to this general information and communication. Producers originally have the ability to communicate via either their electronic means of communication like website or else, or through product labeling, product packaging, to provide information about the handling of the product when it reaches its end of life. But then, of course, retailers are for many products in a prime position to contribute to this communication effort, especially for consumer goods, because consumer, they go to the store. First of all, store are a right place, a very good place to display information, but also to put in place logistics to support the take back of the waste. And this logistics can be of an, let's say, event base or can be continuous. And all of this creates, let's say, an environment where the retailer can have an ongoing conversation with the consumer, which can be, of course, from a business point of view, used to generate traffic. So there are a number of retailers who are using these EPR regulations also as a way to have a tighter relationship with the consumers. So what type of education systems do we see? In-store displays, posters, information under the product where it is presented, bins to take back some of the waste. In the communication in the neighborhoods, we see a lot of civic amenities, municipalities contributing to the general communication around, the life in the neighborhood, and that involves waste management. And waste management also includes some products which are regulated under EPR. And we see very often in the municipalities communications, some that relate to EPR. We see programs in schools where part of in various various tiers of the educational systems, that some environmental programs can be developed and brought to the kids or the students when it comes to how to deal with electronic appliances when they reach their end of life and so forth and so on, which is always interesting because you are basically providing education of an adult to become, and therefore you can better maybe ingrain the right reflexes when it comes to an environmental protection. So in the early stages of EPR, what works also are collection events, which are one way to both combine take back and information sharing. Of course, more and more communications through social media and all are contributing quite a lot to the education and awareness effort. And generally speaking, I would finish by saying that it's a combination of instruments that will work and a combination of communicators. And I think that PROs will have a say, producers will have a say, retailers, municipalities, maybe at the government level through more nationwide campaigns, and of course NGOs involved with environmental protection may also want to contribute to the effort. And one key, of course, approach in the early stage will be to work on the key messages, on the media that will be used to convey such messages.
Janet Ruto, you had a question.
Yes, hi Sarah. Thank you very much for very good presentation. The elaboration was very clear. My question was just to see how you'll plug in the other PROs. I don't know if that question was answered.
Sarah, I did not hear the question, so maybe you can repeat, or you...
How to plug in other PROs, just to work together with them, or Janet?
Yes. How you'll work with them, or how, because there are other PROs that are also doing the e-waste and the other type of waste. So how will you collaborate with them or work together?
You can only, so I'll give a very diplomatic answer. on this, that each PRO is independent and only serves its members. However, let me use an example of Samsung, who bring in their phone when they're packaged in a box. So, and since they're our member, it's our duty as, I'm already speaking this as if Samsung, Nyawera, you've already committed. Sorry for putting you on the spotlight. So it's the duty of, for instance, this PRO to collaborate with either KEPRO or PACPRO, who are dealing with packaging, so that they are able to handle their packaging waste, whereas their main product is just the electrical bits. However, they are packaged in a way so that even when PACPRO or KEPRO says this is the kind of designs that for packaging that are submitted to NEMA, and NEMA says everything is supposed to be packaged like this, then that communication between the PRO and PRO, that can communicate to my members. However, when it comes to sharing, for instance, of knowledge, common knowledge, that is not a harm, but I am independent to my members and serve only the rights of my members. But to influence policy, regulatory frameworks, that will be done by all the PROs.
Yes, for instance, there can be a merit in ensuring that, for instance, communication to the consumer are following, let's say, the same key messaging around. So some coordination could be beneficial in this area. And another area where there will be some benefit is on technical standards, because we want to bring the technical standard up, and everybody should be aligned on, what is the technical standard at which you should operate.
Clear, thank you.
There is a question by, let me see, another one, boy. Yes, do you have particular recyclers you've identified to work with, most likely in textile sector? So any PRO works with multiple registered recyclers, so that you are able to collect the target. So you not just be working with one, for instance, if it's AST. I know there's another one that along the EPZ that was a venture, which was more a startup being held hands by NView. So that kind, and there are more others that are there. So it's not one PRO to one recycler, but multiple recyclers, so that you're able to meet the national targets that will have to be set by NEMA, or the targets that the members of the PRO, will have actually set out of themselves. Yeah. Yes, and the recording will be shared as well as the documents I said. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, fine. On board. Any other question?
Yeah, Sarah, I have one more question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my other question would be, is that electronics are usually very personal, emotional items. And because of their cost, people tend to just hold on to them post any value date. So my question would be, is there look to or intention to incentivize the consumer? So if I bring, so for example, and good Nyawera is here, I have Samsung S9 that has served me very well from 2017. It died, can you still hear me?
Yes.
So I bought it in 2017. It was almost, it was actually about $900. So it served me very well until about 2 months ago. So it's just sitting there. There are thoughts of I could fix it, but I know really it is past its life. So asking for myself and many other Kenyans who feel that was so much money, how do I just throw it out? Are there going to be schemes that incentivize, similar to what we do with bottles and cans, have a value to it in terms of either weight or any? Is there any intent? Is there that intention? Does that exist anywhere else as a good practice, or I just give it and move on?
Generally speaking, we see that applied occasionally, more as a one-off thing, where, as you say, I mean, there is some emotional attachment for some product, and because they are not necessarily very bulky, people tend to hoard them at home, you know, putting them in a drawer or somewhere, and to take them out. Sometimes special campaigns are being made, which may be going with some kind of incentive, which can be financial and non-financial incentives on an ongoing basis, unless there is a highly, let's say, informal collection system that is going on over time, where the picker themselves would offer an incentive to access the waste. Most EPR systems run without a continuous incentives on product. However, very often, retailers, for instance, can, in order to drive business toward them, can say, I will give you so much for your old phones, but it's not necessarily part of the EPR system itself, outside of the occasional campaigns. It is more something which is, let's say, decentralized in terms of decisions to implement.
Yeah,
so, sorry.
It's okay. I thought you had finished. I would like Nyawira to give her real life example, because she has actually raised her hand. I was going to request her to say what the success of the take back system they've been carrying out, whether they gave people money or did they work with the actuary at Samsung to give points, and then we'll get a new product. And then Sebastian will comment after. I see he has his hand raised.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nyawira from Samsung Electronics East Africa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So maybe I can just give some feedback and our key learnings from our project. It's correct what someone said, that especially Kenyans are especially attached to their mobile phones. So collecting them has been very difficult on the mobile phone front. However, for consumer electronics, the fridges, your TVs, that one has not been difficult. So what we have done for consumer electronics is we have come up with an incentive where we give up to 10% discount for anyone looking to buy a new product. If you've already bought, we still give you, the discount. You can share it with a friend or someone, and this goes towards the purchase of your new product. And this came about from when we first introduced our project. On the first day, we got about 800 calls. Everyone wanted their e-waste collected, but they asked, what is in it for me? So I give you my old fridge, which by the way does not work. They're just keeping it in the house and it's occupying a lot of space, but they all asked, what is in it for me? So we had to go back to the drawing board and we came up with the discount code. Originally, we were giving an e-waste certificate, we were giving some branded merchandise, but they felt that that was not enough. So we have come back to the drawing board. We give them a 10% discount on products. So when the moment you sign up and you schedule a collection, we give you the discount code, which you can then redeem at any of our shops for a period of about 3 to 6 months. Now, the key learning from that for us has been it's a selection of people who are environmentally conscious, who are actually interested in conserving the environment, who are interested in this kind of thing. However, the rest of Kenyans who also have a significant amount of e-waste, the interest is not as high as compared to relatively, you know, upper middle class and upper Kenyans. So we are still learning, and you know, we are looking at now what right now we are specializing in is how do we get people to dispose of their old mobile phones. So this is something that we are working on, you know, as at the moment, and we'll share our learnings maybe if we have another session like this. But thank you very much everyone for your interest. We thank you. All right.
Sebastian?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I just wanted to also briefly mention this program called Closing the Loop. This is a company based in the Netherlands, and they are also offering incentives, also financial incentives for old phones. They're working together with OEMs, with phone manufacturers, sellers, providers, especially in the African continent. So Closing the Loop has this program also to incentivize clients and users of phones to bring back their old phone and get some cash against it.
Yeah, and just to add, I don't hold brief for Alex and his colleague. They also carried out the similar project with Salmon, where we traded in our old running shoes and hiking boots for a very good discount of Salmon boots. But one of the key challenge when I talked to the ladies it wasn't a key challenge because for them they had opened it for any shoe brand you come in and get. And I don't know, Alex, how many pairs of shoes did the running and the hiking community actually give in tonnage? Because that is also something that they did, but there was actually value to it. There was a discount. I think it was 30% discount on a shoe. Any other question? Nyawira, your hand is raised. Do you have something to say?
No, sorry. I think I raised it the other time. Sorry for that.
Oh, okay, fine. So if there is no other, Elma, okay.
Yes, I have one more question. Because also with regards to educating consumers and because we sometimes add statements on our products because we are a collector and a recycler, but we are also a producer. And we make rugs and we really want them back because we can actually recycle them again. So we put on our packaging statements like dispose in ACT bins after use, forward this item if you don't want to use it anymore, forward this item to ACT again. And I was wondering, like, if it would be possible perhaps to make such a statement mandatory on all textile products sold in Kenya, just like I think bottles and cans have that also, and instructions how to dispose of a bottle or a can. But with t-shirts, you don't necessarily see that. So it's not a mandatory thing. So instructions for disposal, is that something that we could maybe enforce on every textile product sold in Kenya?
Yes, that is one of the key recommendations that, for instance, in a PRO that is supposed to recommend to the regulator, that is NEMA. Then out of that, NEMA is the one to enforce, for instance, through the relevant ministry here, which is the Ministry of Trade, for instance. So it's one thing that we actually have to, it's one of the functions of a PRO to recommend sustainable mechanisms to enhance recycling and collection of waste streams, of waste material. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we can go to the slide on the next steps. Then after the next steps, I'll request Wambui Mbarire to give a vote of thanks, just for, and to give key takeaway learnings. Nairin, the next step slide.
You should be seeing it correctly.
No, I can't see it on my end.
Yeah.
So one of the key steps is for the members present to, one, agree to be now officially be part of this conversation that will be in the process of establishing the Landbell Green Forest Solutions, PRO. That will give a go-ahead to our legal person, Duncan, from Mwenje and Associates, something. I'd forgotten. Duncan, don't bill me for that mistake. To go ahead, the name reservation has already been done. Contacting, we're also looking for persons to join in as directors to register. So we've already have the Wambui Mbarire from RETRAC, Moses Ndiritu representing the electric vehicles. We are looking for someone from textile and also someone from an ISP and household electronics. So if you'd like to be part of the directorship that will be forming that, other than the three that I've mentioned, that will be in the process now to officially start the registration, then kindly contact me through the email address there. Then we'll be happy to discuss this progress. The other thing is we'll call you for another meeting as you give us a go-ahead now to be our key stakeholders in this PRO. To be our key stakeholders, we'll call you for another meeting where we share our baseline survey for EEE. The textile one, we are in the process as well, and would like to do that in a month's time. So early meeting in October. However, we still want more producers coming in. As Jeff Koinange says, spread the word of Landbell Green Forest Solutions and the good work that we want to do with producers. And so in doing so, we'll be contributing to a green Kenya, creating green jobs, meeting sustainable development goals, and you'll be fulfilling your ESG obligations as producers. Thank you very much. Wambui, give us a vote of thanks. Then I'll let Nairin is the one who didn't say much other than saying we'll say thank you and we close off the meeting ahead of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much to the team for your presentations. Really great learnings coming out of it. I'll just start by saying, similar to what I said earlier, I think our greatest success will be based on how we engage the consumer. As Nyawira has said, it can be both an easy task and a difficult task. It should be an easy task because if I have a fridge that is dead in my house, it's just taking up space that I could use for something else, but people still feel attached to it for whatever reason. Maybe it was a wedding gift, maybe they feel the value is still there. People always live with intentions of repairing, but 4-5 years down the road, it's still there waiting for repair. So a lot of consumer engagement, I think that has come across as very important. The role of retailers, obviously, as Sarah mentioned, there's probably 0.001% of electronics in this country that might be manufactured locally. The greater percentage of that is actually imported. The challenges I see with that is, while we have, for example, Samsung or LG or Ramtoms with specific and assigned distributors, we then also have very porous borders that allow for the same products to come through unknown sources and are sold by unknown people. So how can we put together the two groups so that, and I know the EPR system is actually going to quite correct that, because if it goes, I happen to also sit on, be a member of KEPRO that is doing packaging and glass and a bit of steel. If it goes the same way as that one, to sell any of those products, you'll have to be a member of an EPR. I had Sarah say that it could be possible for you to set up your own, but I think more, NEMA is more leaning towards having a specific EPR for a specific line or value chain. So you will have to get an EPR license, I think, if it goes the way it's going with packaging, to be able to sell those products, because you must show that there's an element of polluter pay that is attached to the product you're bringing into the market. The need for partnering with other IPRs, I think that one was well explained by Sarah. There will be interconnecting linkages because even textiles, and again, in the textile area, there are two things that I would want to add to what was said. Is one, I think Alex noted that 40% of mitumba, for example, ends up as garbage. But a lot of that comes in paper that then belongs to another EPR. And maybe at this point I should also, it would be a tall order getting returned to manufacturer on the t-shirts, considering that again, a significant percentage of the clothing in this country is also imported. So it comes without that label, and to be foolhardy to imagine how we can force that backwards unless the countries that are producing that adopt that system. But as we rebuild and regrow our textile sector, that is definitely something we should have in the paper. So that the Kikomis and Rivertex, as they grow, start putting that into play. Again, I would want probably to just end by saying engagement of the various stakeholders remains very key. EPR is still something that is catching on. I think the only people who really embraced it are the plastics people, and the reason they've embraced it is they already suffered one ban, so they're quick to do whatever is required to do to ensure they don't face a second ban on any of the other products that they're producing. So we need to have many continuous engagements of the textile industry, of the electronic and electricity, electronic and electrical gadget sector, so that people start seeing that they also have a role to play, even as we embrace practices that are good for our climate and our environment. So once again, thank you very much for the session. I have been asked by a few retailers if we could share the link. So I reach out to Sarah to share the link with those who are not able to attend today as we start the education and engagement with all the players. Thank you very much.
Then thank you very much,
Back to you,
everyone.
Sarah.
I think. Oh, thank you. I think with this we can close the session. We will be sending out a recording of the presentation slides, also a summary of the Sustainable Waste Management Act of Kenya, a very short one, which will brief you on the producer obligations. And also, please reach out for membership requests, information, anything else to Sarah. The link I also posted in the chat. And yes, thank you very much. Let's work together in a collective scheme to create a green and natural environment for Kenya.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye
you.
all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.